Okay, great. Sure. So, good evening, everyone. I believe all of you would be pretty excited. Arpit is also here. Good
Yeah.
evening, Arpit. How are you?
Good, all good. How are you?
I'm good too. Ishita, are you there?
Yeah, hello, I'm here.
Yeah.
Just a second.
Oh, great. Nice. Good to see you all. How are you guys doing?
Good. Where are you guys connecting from?
I am connecting from Bangalore.
Oh,
What about you?
perfect. Okay.
I'm in
Probably
London right now.
London, right? Yeah.
What
Okay.
about you?
Nice. I think, Arpit, you're also in London as of now?
No, no. I'm in Bangalore right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good that. Oh, that's good to know. Okay, we have someone from Kosovo also. That's interesting. Okay,
Mhm.
so we'll keep the session a bit more interactive, just like it's more like a masterclass. Okay, we have kept it as an invite-only session, so there would be very limited participants as of now. Uh, the whole purpose of organizing this is to help students to understand at a very detailed level about your journey and also about their planning when they are going for their masters in management and allied fields. Usually the issue with majority of the students is they consider MBA as the only resort. This session is also a myth breaker that apart from MBA, there are other channels with which you can eventually do a better career, choose a better career options.
Right.
So that's going to be one of the prime agenda of discussion. The way we're gonna take this conversation ahead is I'll give a brief introduction about what we are doing at Foreign Admits so that people get to know what this initiative is about. Then I'll hand over to you guys to give your introduction and a little bit about your journey. And then we'll start more about your bachelor's to master's transition, and then what was your footsteps that some of them others can also learn from and probably follow, or there are certain do's and don'ts which you have incurred in your career choices. And then we'll start taking on further in-depth questions about internships, brands, quality of work and life, and CGPAs and all those small pointers for every international aspirant would want to know about.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, good to go. So, good evening, everyone. Today we are at another session of study abroad mentorship and masterclass. Today's session is more about masters in management and analytics fields. Here we are going to discuss more about different and diverse career options that any student from any kind of background can look towards. And again, certain myth breaking is going to happen. MBA, MIM, MFA. There are tons of varieties of courses out there. And for that, again, I'm not the right guy all the time. There are amazing set of mentors that we have on our platform. So Arpit and Ishita are connecting from two different universities, comes with a diverse experience in their masters in finance and masters in business analytics and masters in financial analytics, if I'm correct. So yeah, so foreign admits, just to let you know what we essentially are doing, we are basically building an international student aspirants community and a digital platform wherein most of the students who are usually lost in their career journey, what to do, why to do, when to do, and how to do. So what we are essentially doing, using certain data, using amazing set of mentors, we are trying to demystify the information connect. You can connect to all of the mentors, you can get all the university direct information, and you can apply digitally through the platform. So yeah, without further ado, let's start this session. I'm Nikhil Jain. I'm co-founder at Foreign Admits. We have Arpit from SAID, Barcelona, and we have Ishita from the business school. So right now, what we are going to discuss is what are the diverse career options that we have for students who are just getting out of the college or probably few working professional, like 2 to 3 years of work experience, and looking towards management or allied fields. So, but before we jump into this, let's hear it a little bit about Arpit and Ishita and understand their journey, and then we'll get to the details of the discussion. So, over to Arpit, and then followed by Ishita.
Sure. So I basically did my engineering in Odisha for my bachelor's. And then I went on to work for a startup. It was an educational technology startup. And side by side, I was also running an NGO. So that was with a few of my friends. After that, I decided, so it was during that time that I decided that I'm going for a master's abroad. I really liked analytics stuff because at the startup that I was working in, so it dealt with some kind of analytics stuff. So I really liked that field and thought of going for a master's in that field. After about working for 10 months, I really got an admit from ISADE. I also applied for LBS, but that didn't make it. So after about so the course was for 10 months, and then you do an internship, and finally conclude the masters, which I just did last month. And post that you work full time basically, right? So that has been kind of my journey till now, and a bit on my hobbies and stuff. I really like sports and music. I'm into multiple sports. I was the sports club president at my bachelor's college. I was the captain of our volleyball team. I enjoy playing music. I play the guitar and sing, and I love to travel around. So this kind of journey has been a self discovering one, if I may say so. It has been like really a great change of environment, and rediscovering myself, what I want out of life. So yeah.
It's pretty interesting. Self-discovery, I think, is a big challenge for most of the, freshers and undergrads, and even at senior positions also. So, Ishita, tell us about your journey.
So I've just completed my engineering in computer science. I did my bachelor's in Mumbai. And while I was studying computer science, I knew I wanted to do a master's, but initially I thought that it would be in computer science itself. During my college, I did a couple of internships and worked on a couple of projects. And I realized that I didn't really want to uh, become a developer or a software engineer in the future. And through my projects, I realized that I really like analytics as a field where I want to work in the future. So that's when I started thinking about applying for the business analytics course. And when I was looking at universities, of course, it's a very confusing stage, um, and you talk to a lot of people, gather a lot of information. So I shortlisted a couple of colleges that I really liked in UK and US. And out of that, I think LBS was at the top of my list. So I landed here. I think I've just started doing the course, and it's only been 2 months, but it's really great. And I think as we go further, we can talk more about the course components. Apart from that, I think I'm an art lover. I like making and looking at art. So that's that. I also just received my degrees from my university. So it's been kind of.
Congratulations for that. So you're
Thank
finally
you.
official bachelor's and now into the masters.
Yeah.
So one thing I found out from both of your brief journey, that you knew you wanted to do masters, or you somehow figured out that you wanted to do masters, and studying abroad was one of your choices, right? So what was that reasoning which kind of made it clear, or made you understand that yes, I have to choose this course? The reason I'm asking this, just focusing on the stats, 37 million people go for higher education in India. Out of that, only 800,000 students go abroad. It's a very small number who goes. So having that clarity, you belong to that list. Okay. So what was your trigger? Why did you think that this could be one of those choices? And what was your reasoning in that?
Who do you want to go first?
We want to do a more candid conversation so that students can also understand what goes in, because again, we all are young grads only, and we wanted to give more real perspectives, what made you guys choose. So probably they can also understand that it's not a rocket science sometimes.
Okay, so I'll go. My reasoning was that I needed a change of environment, and I really liked, I like to embrace change in a way. So I thought the best way of doing it would be probably a complete change of environment, meet new people, go to a different country, do all that you that you think of doing, and really see where you go after that, right? So that was there, but probably the main trigger was that I always wanted to go abroad since quite some time, quite since I think the beginning of my bachelor's days. I always wanted to go abroad, and that one of my passions has also been traveling. So that was there, and plus this sort of would accelerate my career in a way that I could now target the entire world, and not just look for jobs in India, right? So that's one of the benefits that you get once you attend a world class, a university which is reputed worldwide, right? So after that, the entire world becomes your playfield, and you could just go anywhere that you want. So that was kind of the idea of me going for a master's abroad.
Interesting. I think global exposure and probably a change of culture
Definitely.
were one of the two reasons which I can pick from your conversation. And I can totally resonate to it, having traveled to at least 10 countries. So yes, exposure is something that is not tangible, but it's somewhere felt,
I mean,
when we
yeah.
are going abroad.
Plus your peer group. That's something that you can never get anywhere in India. So, and that's such a life changing experience that you could only experience once you get it. So that's that.
Absolutely. So what about Ishita? You've spent 2 months as of now, and you are just going there. So how's your change, and why did you choose? I think you mentioned that you really wanted to go abroad. So what
Uh,
was that trigger?
Actually, I didn't really want to go abroad in specific. I wanted to do a master's, but I wasn't that clear. I was more of a confused person who didn't know if she should sit in placements when all of my friends were sitting in placements and get a job first, or do an MBA or do an MS, or do it from India or do it from abroad. But so I did get a job as well, and I applied for a master's. When I had to make the choice between choosing for a master's in India or abroad, um, I thought about the kind of people that I'll get to meet and the kind of place that I'll get to stay. So I really wanted a very global batch, and I realized and I really liked the curriculum that they had abroad, as compared to the working style that's there in India. So, for example, this course has a field trip that happens during the year. They have a live project where you get to work with a company for some duration of your course. There's a variety of electives, and you can really modify the course as per your requirement. Um, so I think those were the factors that eventually made me choose studying abroad as compared to studying in India. And also, I didn't really know like that there are courses where you can pursue a master's, which like management courses, which you can do after just 1 or 2 years of experience as well. So when I found that out, I think that was another trigger that made me focus on pursuing studies before doing a job.
Interesting. So
So,
I think exposure and the change in the working culture is something that I am picking out from your conversations. So again, I kind of relate to it because in India we are more abstractive in terms of our work, the horizon of thinking and the kind of work culture that we have. definitely it sometimes makes a choice that yes, why not explore it. So talking about now, I'll go a little bit more specific. Abroad is big. Okay, let's boil down to the country and your college and your courses, right? So what was your thought process when you were choosing a particular country and certain set of colleges and a certain set of courses in those colleges? So probably I'll start here from Nishita because she definitely understands now the course components. She has done the research fresh. So let's start from her and then Arpit will take over.
All right. So when I was looking at which country to apply for, because that's the first thing you shortlist, and the next step would be shortlisting universities. I was looking at the job opportunities that'll be there afterwards. So for me, I wanted to choose a place where the technical job opportunities will be more. So US was an obvious choice because the job market there is huge. And the other choice was UK. One of the reasons was the visa relaxation that's been done here and the 2 years work permit that they just introduced, which I feel is a very important factor. A lot of people go abroad, but then they have to come back later if they don't get a job there. So that was one of the reasons, and of choosing these two countries, like shortlisting them. In terms of the course, like I mentioned, I didn't want to do a complete coding job when later, and I really liked analytics, but I chose to go to a business school to study analytics instead of say a school which is very renowned for their technical courses, because I felt that lies somewhere between an MS and an MBA. So, being here, you can apply for all the job opportunities that maybe an MBA person could apply for, as well as the ones that an engineer or a technical person would apply for. So I thought that this course opens a lot more doors than doing, suppose, say, like a more specialist course would. So that was, uh, yeah, that was my thought process of choosing a business school in either US or UK and choosing a business analytics course.
Interesting. So Arpit, what about you? Spent
Yeah,
your
the
time in.
logic of choosing the business school is pretty much the same. I always wanted to go into analytics, but not stay entirely technical. So that's the logic behind going for a analytics course in a business school. Regarding Spain, has any of you been to Barcelona or Spain in general? If no, I'll definitely recommend it. 10 on 10. Like Barcelona is probably, as I've heard from my European classmates, is probably one of the best places to be. So and I really enjoyed every moment of it. So the Spanish culture is something that you'd really enjoy. They're very relaxed people with a very relaxed kind of lifestyle. They party a lot, as as is common with all Latinos, and that's probably the reason. Like Barcelona was probably so. ISADE was the first school that I got admitted, and once that was finalized, if you see the rankings in business analytics courses, I think only LBS was higher. LBS actually had just started the analytics course last year, so I was again a bit apprehensive, but I still applied anyways. But I didn't find a better business analytics program in Europe in general. So, and Spain was already there. So I just took it. I didn't go for anything else. So that was basically the reason behind Spain and business school. Plus, pretty much every top three B school in a country will provide you kind of it's almost the same brand value. Rankings matter a lot, differ a lot, little bit, but it's ultimately it's probably the same. Like it keeps changing every year, and I really don't understand how rankings work, but yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah, one tip for the student is ranking is just one component. What you want to get out of the degree and the course structure and the location, the duration of the course, those are
Exactly.
other components.
Probably the main components are your peer group and the location you are in, because you will be you're forming bonds with people at a good place, right? So it makes lasting memories. Yeah, that's the reason.
Absolutely. So a couple of questions here is when you're choosing those universities, these are the very basic criteria that a lot of students look up to: your GMAT scores, your GRE scores, IELTS, TOEFL. So did you guys go through that, or was there a waiver that you guys could, probably have it? So what was your process?
So there's no waiver. GRE or GMAT is a mandatory component in a lot of schools. Some of them, at least in UK, give admissions on the basis of IELTS itself as well. But for LPS at least, either GRE or GMAT was a compulsory factor. So I gave GRE and TOEFL. I gave TOEFL and not IELTS because I wanted to keep my options in the US open as well. And I gave GRE because over GMAT because I was essentially looking at MS courses, right? So GRE made more sense for me. So yeah, in terms of scores, I think for most colleges, a score above 320, you could consider it to be like a safe score. I had a score of 327 in GRE and 114 in TOEFL. So, but then all colleges look at the overall profile. So if you have a score in GRE which is above 320, and you have everything else that is good, then that would make a complete profile look good.
And what was your quant score in GRE?
I had a perfect score in quant, so that was 170 on 170.
Absolutely, that's a very interesting insights because I think this is something that not a lot of people know, that a lot of management colleges are accepting GRE also instead of GMAT. So a lot of people find GMAT to be a little difficult exam, whereas GRE is your quant. If you're an engineering student in India, we definitely have a little bit of edge on quants. So you can score a good score in quants, and verbal you can still manage there. And
definitely.
Talking about TOEFL, and again, a lot of people don't know that TOEFL is valid in UK. They just think TOEFL is only for US. So TOEFL has validity all across the world. It's just that in Canada, because of certain visa special track, there you might need IELTS, but all across the world, TOEFL is equivalently, considered as an exam by the universities and the embassies. So talking about Arpit, what was your score? Someone says never ask the scores, but I had to do the.
Yeah, I understand. So I had a 680 in GMAT, and I was again a little heavy on quants. I was a bit good at quants, but English was a section that I really sucked at. But as long as, so you need to understand one thing, that abroad schools, everything there's a change of mindset, right? It's not like your usual Indian B schools mindset where you need to get a very good score in CAT or so. What they really care about is whether you have the drive, whether your story is consistent, and that has to come out of the application, right? So if you really have a clear idea of why you are going for that particular course, or why you are going for that particular school, and how exactly you're planning out your career. Of course, that's liable to change, and they very well understand that as well. But you need to demonstrate that you sort of have an understanding why you are going for this course, or why you're going for that particular school, and how that school will help you get to your short-term goal, right? And all they care about that is in the application is you put out that, right? So scores matter to some extent, because I know people with 630 who have still got an inside, I admit. And believe me, he was a rock star, right? So a bad score will not necessarily mean that you would be discarded. It's just that you need to have the drive, and you need to show them that, right? So I think that clears that point.
Interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of students be obsessed about scoring high because that's what IIT JEE or potentially, CAT 99.999 percentile have taught us. But yes, I certainly resonate with the point because I was also 70% kid, secured full funding for Australia. So it's an overall profile that would definitely matter to the college. Scores definitely has a role to play for qualifying, but after that it's your profile that's going to take you in.
Yeah.
So tell us something about your college, your courses. What did you like, what did you learn, from Saudi, and what are you learning specifically at LBS? What's a change that you're finding out so that students get to know from here that what that college is all about?
Who do you want to go first? I can go.
Yeah.
If you- I can go.
I kind of kept it in confusion. Probably I'll start with Arpit because you have already completed it. So you can give a better 360-degree understanding, and probably then Ishita can join.
Yeah, sure. So the thing about ISADE that I really liked about the program was that it is designed in a way to give you an overview of the complete analytics cycle, right? So starting from all the aspects that are related to analytics, they give you an overview of everything, but they don't go too much in depth into one particular thing, right? So and honestly, there's no time for it because the course is just 1 year, and you really can't deep dive into any particular topic because you'll miss out on other things, right? So one of the things that I really liked was they covered pretty much all topics that are there. Plus, there was if you generally see, there was kind of an entrepreneurial mindset among the students there, and that is something that I really like. People there were pretty good. I mean, very good, and that's one of the distinguishing factors of going to a good B school. That the peer group would be very good. Plus, we had a study trip to. There are two locations that you basically have for analytics courses. One was New York and one was Tel Aviv. So I went for New York. So the study tour, and again, you can customize the last half of the program. So the third term is basically designed by you. You take on electives that you want. So I think it was a good mix of everything that you would want to see in an analytics program. I think it was good. I mean, academics, of course, it's pretty much the same everywhere, I would think, because analytics, the theory doesn't change, right? So pretty much everyone would teach you the same thing. Of course, the method of teaching would be different, but ultimately, end result is you learn those things either from professors or on your own. You learn those things. What matters is the other aspects that a school really provides, and I think ISADA did really great on that aspect.
Interesting. Interesting. So yeah, over to Ishita. Like, how's your journey? The transition has been.
I think it's been really great. I think the course structure is kind of similar to what Arpit just shared with us. So this is an analytics and management course. It is about 60% analytics and 40% management. So we have a lot of technical subjects and we do learn technical languages, but again, it's not that much in depth. It's sufficient for you to join a workplace in the role of an analyst, or even if you go for a managerial role in a company where analytics is big. So you'll be able to understand everything and you'll be able to learn and grasp. So that's what the course prepares you for. Of course, it's a business school, so the management subjects are really great as well. I love how the professors teach. They want you, like, they make you want to learn with the enthusiasm that they bring in the class. And of course, the class is very diverse. There are people from all kinds of backgrounds. There are engineering students, there are students from economics background, from the medical background. Someone has done law, someone has done family, someone has been from like a pharmaceutical background. So, and the age group, of course, is then diverse as well. There are people ranging from 21 years old to 26 years old. Then, yeah, and you're allotted to study groups, which, so your study group is fixed for a term and it's really diverse. Like I have a study group of 6 people and everyone is from a different country. So I think that's, oh, and of course, one of the main things that I think that one of the main values that a B school from abroad adds to you is the vast networking opportunity that you get there. So I am in an MAM course at LBS, and the flagship course of LBS would be the MBA course, but I get to interact with all the same companies and all the same opportunities that those people have. So I think networking is a very big plus point when you're studying abroad from a B school.
I think
So
that's a very wonderful point in terms of networking, because you clearly mentioned, coming from an MAM course, you're not just closed in your MAM course, basically, and you kind of have more diverse interactions with MBA, MFA, MIF, and other people at London Business School. I though I haven't been to London Business School, but we kind of won one of the award there. There's a clean tech challenge that happens at London Business School, partnered with UCL. So that's a very good memory that I hold. Winning £10,000 there for one of my
wow.
talks. So yeah, it's a very healthy environment, and the kind of growth students has on a personal level. That's something I'm a big fan, for Saudi and LPS both. A lot of friends come from that place. But yeah, coming back to one or two very interesting, things which you guys mentioned in opportunities, networking, So as a student, what were the opportunities that you found out or you saw that is there? Somehow you may have grabbed it, somehow you saw but couldn't grab because it was too late, because there are tons of opportunities. So how is the understanding in terms of the opportunities that is there in your universities and potentially in the country which you are in? Okay, and how should a student uh, plan for those things upfront? Okay. So what was your planning? Like, if I'm going to LBS, what should I look at? How do I, look for internships or maybe part-time jobs? Because for some people, part-time jobs are important. For some people, it's just not very first priority. Okay. And how do I go about networking? So what's your take on those things?
So networking begins very early in the stage. So as soon as people get their admits, there are groups that are formed on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and students are already communicating with each other. I think one of the main things that I've learned, and I didn't know this before, so I couldn't apply it as much, but for people who want to apply, LinkedIn is really important. Go search for alumni either from your college, your country, or from the company that you want to work in, or from the college that you got an admit from, and just talk to them. People are really nice. They'll Not everyone will reply, but most of them will, and that helps you a lot. So that would be like my really important advice on networking, that just reach out to people. I think coming from India and not being that extrovert, didn't always feel comfortable reaching out to people because I wasn't sure how they would react. But trust me, people will reply, and when they have the time, they'll have a chat with you or address your queries. So always do that in terms of networking.
Yeah, and looking at the part-time jobs, like, are
Yeah.
there any opportunities on those domains?
There are. I think for part-time jobs, people look for part-time jobs on their own. Internships you can get through the college as well. Like there's a college portal. But so one difference between studying in India and abroad is that you have placements in India, but you don't have that abroad. There are a lot of opportunities. You have the name of your university and you have people you talk with, but you have to make applications by yourself. So, of course, there's a university portal where companies put out job notices about full time jobs and internships. So, you can apply through them and you can look for them on the side as well. Very less people do part time jobs because the course itself is pretty comprehensive, and and a lot of people focus more on networking than, and if you do a part-time job you can't do everything. So So if you think you're going outside and you'll do everything, you'll excel in academics, you'll get a great job, you'll do a part-time job, and you'll socialize, you'll be a part of a lot of committees in the college, then that's not possible. You have to pick two things and prioritize what you want to do. So yeah, people can definitely do a part-time job, but then they'd have to compromise on the other things, and they'll probably have to look for that by themselves. As for internships are encouraged, of course. So it's really great to do internships, and you have a lot of opportunities through the university.
Interesting. So what about you, Arpit?
So just to iterate the fact that we had a very famous saying among our students at ISADE: the three things: sleep, party, and study, and you can only choose two. You can't choose all three. That's the golden rule we went by. But yeah, networking, definitely LinkedIn is a magical tool. Like it's been really a game changer. People do reply, so that's the good thing of studying at a good university. All the alumni, pretty much 80% of them would reply back and have a chat with you, help you with all the information you need about a company or so, and also might help with the referral if you get along well. So you need to do that. You definitely need to get on with that as soon as you start with the program, probably even before you join or start the program, right? And in terms of opportunities, I would say, to be honest, Spain is a bit difficult market to get into as an international student, because there are probably a few factors like visa, language, which comes in, and your experience will also play a part, like what experience you have as of now before the masters. And for analytics fields, experience really becomes a key factor, that really differentiates or creates that edge, because ultimately the company has to sponsor your visa, and they basically have to do that paperwork and have to justify that why they are taking an overseas candidate, and not a local candidate. They have to justify that to the Ministry of Labor or whatever they get the visa from. So that really is slightly tough in Spain. So it's not impossible. People do manage to find there, but it's difficult. So disclaimer. But yeah, after a few years, maybe if you have the right kind of experience, and you find the right kind of companies that you want to work with, there are companies who do sponsor, and I know people from India who have really got a job there immediately after the masters and after a few years. So it's definitely possible. Just need to network with the right kind of people and then walk your way through with the process. There's a careers team which will help you along the way. So, but ultimately it's your own effort, and that's, I would say, 80% of the work is your own, and 20% would be others.
Okay. Talking about the part-time jobs, I think you made it pretty clear as the statement is sleep, study, and party. So yeah. Definitely
it's very difficult actually. In a 1-year course, if you go for a part-time job, you'll be missing out on stuff. Like you'd want to study and really socialize with people, and then yeah.
Absolutely. So this particular theory is absolutely correct for a lot of students who look towards part-time job in a year-long course. It's predominantly favorable for a 2 years course, or probably for your bachelor's or maybe PhD, because that's where I came and we had a good amount of money earned in our part-time on-campus jobs. So if you're getting a PhD, definitely TA-ship, RA-ship's gonna pay you. But yes, it's not a free vacation. Just as a disclaimer to be put, it's very intensive. But yes, this is a very core concern for a lot of Indian students who miss out on the opportunity, considering the cost of studying abroad or living abroad on that note. So how did you guys prepare so that people can understand that it's just not the cost, it's more about the ROI that you look at. It's an overall thing. But as I said, I can be biased because I am running a venture in this domain. So I want to understand from you guys, what's your take? How did you plan and manage the cost? And what's your goal in further, looking towards the ROI aspect?
Do you want to take it, Shita, or should I go?
You can go. You can start.
Okay. So about the ROI thing, I think the most important aspect here, why we're really going abroad is the exposure, and is the peer group, is the change in mindset, which cannot be measured, right? And that for me was the most important factor behind choosing this. Now I'm not from a very well-to-do financial family, so I had to take a loan, like because the complete expenses actually is a loan. Like I didn't, my parents didn't pay anything for it, so it was completely a loan. And I believe you really need to be sure of what you want, and really be confident about that, about the fact that you can make it, right? So that's the kind of, you'll do something good. So that's the kind of mindset you need to go, and that will happen over the year as well. Like you meet with a lot of different kinds of people, that mindset change will automatically come in you. And after going through that process, you would no longer be worried about finding a job, because you know that you can make it. So I would say, really, if you're into getting a change in mindset, getting a different environment, and really it'll fast track, right? People, you would find something decent. I would not say you'll not find something. People here are finding it difficult, like from my batch, finding a job right now, all the Indians, probably because of the COVID as well. But everybody will do something good, and I have full faith in everyone that everybody will find something decent. Probably probably it will not be too much in the initial years, but you pick up skills that you could really use in an organization to fast track your growth. And I really believe 3 years down the line, you wouldn't be thinking about ROI at all. So that's it.
Yeah. So I think to add to that, so it depends a lot on your background as well. So someone who's come with the 2 years experience already, the course helps in transitioning to maybe one level or two level above what you were already working as. So once you do the course, you'll definitely land up at a job which will be which will begin with a higher post. So which means a higher salary, of course. And for someone who's freshly graduate, for like me, I'll probably be applying for posts that are entry level after doing the masters. But definitely, once you gain 2 or 3 years of experience plus the masters, then the growth is a lot exponential than what it would have been without the course. In terms of job opportunities, I think a degree from abroad is valued a lot in India. So if you plan on doing studies abroad and then going back to India, I think you'll find a really great job, which pays pretty well as well. I mean, that's what I feel.
Uh,
And no,
I'd like to differ there.
okay.
Not all schools actually have that kind of reputation in India, because yeah, some companies where already alumni of that particular institution work, they already know that school. But there are schools which are not all employers know, so they would think that people with money are going abroad, and it's
No,
not.
that makes sense. But like the schools that we are in, I think that those are pretty well recognized.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
if
even
at all,
if you like don't find anything, like find you'll be able to find an entry level job, and probably have for the first 1 or 2 years we'll have to slug it out, but after that it's going to be good. You need to
yeah.
just get that initial experience, analytics related experience, to make that switch, right? So that's it.
And like I believe that I mean the scene in Spain can be different, of course, because I don't know about that. But in UK, people do find jobs. So that's not a problem. Everyone finds a job eventually by the end of the course. Some may find it right now, like we've just begun the course, and some people may already be getting interviews, getting jobs by December, say, and others will find it by May, June. But if you want to stay here, you can. I mean, it's by
Yeah.
the end of it, people It's not a problem.
A very
Especially with
important part here, actually. Yeah, just go on.
no, especially because of the visa changes that have been made here. So companies are more accepting of taking people because they'll have to sponsor the visa after 2 years. So
Interesting.
Okay, yeah. So this is actually the interesting part. So some countries are a bit more open to sponsoring visas, while others are not. And the companies like Germany, you would find a lot of Indians going to Germany because they're a bit more, bit less strict about the visa thing, right? So, and the universities things also work out. Some universities like ESSEC, I know a friend of mine who was studying at ESSEC, and they have a flexible program, right? They can customize the entire program, and they can even stretch it to maybe 3 or 4 years. So basically what happens is you can get the university, you can apply for a visa yourself, like you can show that my studies are for 3 4 years, and you can get the visa and you can work, right? So that's what my friend is doing actually. And you need to factor in all those things while looking for internships as well. If you do it, so the country that you're trying to get into, if the university is in the same country, it's always a bonus, because you'll have that visa, you'll not have that much problem for the visa. So
Yeah, I think yes. For any aspirant who are trying to go abroad, visa and the choice of country also plays a very important role. One of the reasons currently being US as one of the very skeptical country to study as of now. But again, many aspirants, because of the publicity of the US, universities still prefer and try and slog towards this thing. UK definitely has grown as of now, recently after their visa changes, as a more prominent and more trusted choice. And one of the main reason which I see for UK is being an English speaking nation. On that note, which is a bigger or easier way for any Indian or non-English speaking, sorry, English, not a native English speaker to go. Ireland also have grown on the same note, but when we are considering Germany or Spain or Italy or any other European country, language in the management field specifically comes as a little bit of a hurdle. So
definitely.
that's something I believe most of the aspirants, if you learn a language, you definitely have a greater edge in the job and in the universities. But if you don't, probably you have to look towards UK or Ireland, if you are open to those kinds of suggestions. And talking about jobs, I definitely agree that university alumni network and the brand reputation somewhere even matters, but location is a very very big factor. Okay, if you are in the prime location, uh, I come from Monash in Melbourne, again one of the prime locations, a decent university, not very worldwide known to a lot of people, but definitely has a great network. And during the first year, probably the first 3 months of my Australian visit, I was getting offers. So you can get it. It's just about your own networking skills. And university gives you a lot of opportunities. A lot of portals are there on the universities. There are many clubs are there, and you can eventually prepare for your overall development. I'm sure there are a lot of LinkedIn classes, career connect classes. Those might be there. So as an international university, these are the things that university actively spends, and I'm sure you may agree that they do spend on the student overall development, not just in the academics. So that is a very big differentiator. But yes, coming back to one of the important thing is cost. How are you guys managing the cost? Did you guys took loan? I think Arpit took loan. So probably if you can help us understand the loan processes that you have gone through, because trust me, I have called me a lucky child here. I was always a full funded scholar, so I never had the trouble of facing loan. But I know a lot of students have trouble of facing the loan choices. So how did you guys manage it? And again, I come from a very humble financial background, so I know finances management is really really critical, on that note.
I can't help you there. Sorry, my father works in the bank, so he took care of everything.
Okay. So Ishita, what about you? Have you taken the loan, or what's your financial planning?
No, actually, I did not take a loan. I was funded by my family
Okay.
entirely for studies. But taking a loan, like I did consider going for it. I thought of taking a 50% loan and 50% being funded by the family, but we later decided to drop that. But taking a loan, if you're considering, is not really difficult. Like I did research about the procedures and everything. There and I got the suggestion of taking a loan from, say, of course, government banks charge a less rate of interest compared to private banks, so you can look into that. If you're a good student, there are always scholarships available. Most of the universities consider scholarships based on your application itself, and you don't have to do anything apart from that. So that if you're in the top few people of the admissions that they of the admits that they're handing out, then you have the chance of getting a scholarship. Um, Even after you get an admission, there's a procedure, at least it was there for my university, where you can apply for a bursary. So if they feel that you really, really need it, they do provide that as well. If you can like prove that you need that for funding your education. So yeah, I think those are some of the ways. And yeah, you can do a couple of internships. So that's beneficial in two ways because you're gaining a lot of experience. It adds to your CV for future job applications. And all internships abroad are paid. So it's not like in India where you just do the internship for experience. Here they pay, if it's a good company or even if it's a really good startup, they pay a handsome amount for the internships as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just to help people, because I know people didn't get the answers about the loans thing. Probably you can look towards government banks if you're looking to work in India and enjoy the tax benefit. That is something is a really big understanding that not a lot of people know. Government banks definitely look towards collateral. Non-collateral is very difficult to get from a government bank. But if you don't have a collateral, you want to go for a little easier option with a lower interest rate. There are some NBFCs like Prodigy, Leap, maybe Incred. On that note, I'll not recommend Credila here personally because it's very high in terms of interest rate. But yes, if you're in the most difficult situation, you can go for Credila also. That's something you have to make a choice. Just keep a note of fixed interest plus floating interest, because that would basically change the whole interest rate scenario. The floating interest rate is something deadly in terms of your interest rate payback, and that's something you have to look at. And yes, what Ishita mentioned about bursary or scholarships, there are some great amount of scholarship. I recently helped one of the LBS student only for masters in finance for a senior level course. So we had her, apply for the scholarships. Also, I think there are somewhere around 8 to 10 scholarships in London Business School for all the international students, and some are also more favored to the Indian students also. That's something you can look at it. If you are having a community in India, that is something my latest finding. Like I belong to a Jain community. So if you are having a community in India, a lot of communities also fund you for your higher education. So probably if you have a very strong knit community like us, sorry to say that, but you can get some zero interest loans or some scholarships there. So scholarships are a part, but for that, I believe you need to apply in time or potentially early because funds are limited, and it's more like first come, first serve, the very limited scholarship on the last rounds. And speaking about last round, I think round two is just ending, round three is starting for a lot of colleges. If you're applying now, probably after round three, it would be really, really difficult for you to look towards the scholarship aspect. So, okay, now, scholarships is a long debate. You can always get scholarships, but what it takes to get a scholarship, probably some 30 seconds or 50 seconds from each of you, that these are the things that someone needs to build to be qualified for scholarships. A profile building topics, how do you build your profile for a good admission or a good scholarship? Because certainly you guys are in great schools.
I can go first. So basically, scholarships are of two kinds: need-based and talent-based. Need-based would be to justify that you really need a scholarship to be able to fund your education. So, and talent-based would be to just show what you have. And profile-based tips would be, of course, there are certain things that you can work on, but what really would matter is just if you can put everything together into a story and just put it out in front of them, right? Now, good academics, of course, if you had good CGPAs, it's good. Otherwise, you can use your GRE, GMAT scores to compensate for that. Some extracurriculars that you really are passionate about, community work, or uh, like helping out people in the community. Those kind of things also are good, but I wouldn't say it's necessary. What's really important for the adcom is to just show that or justify why you're really going for it, why you're going for that school, or just to put everything into everything that you have done till now and what you're planning in the future, in the near future, has to come together. So that's just about it.
Interesting.
I think I do agree with Arpit. Adding to that, I believe that if you have to break it down into simple points, one would be a GRE score, your CGPA in high school, the internships that you've done. For me, I had written research papers, so that community work, extracurricular activities, and your hobby. So these are 6 or 7 things. And what you really need to do is be really great at least one of them. So even if your scores and all are not really nice, maybe you are really great at a hobby and you can give evidence of how you've showcased it in some manner. So if I really like art and my paintings were put in an art exhibition, I highlighted that fact. Suppose you're really great in academics, you highlight that. So there has to be one thing that you need to show that you're extremely good at, and the other things can be like maybe good or average. So I think that helps. And of course, write a really great SOP, as Arpit mentioned, put it all into a story. And make it really personalized. So that helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why people really look at that, is because you would look at why a certain thing that you're good at is because they want their cohort to be really diverse. So they want your experience of, let's say, art in their class, right? How you would bring that value into
exactly
help or contribute to the cohort. So that's really important for them.
I think the right term to put here is batch contribution. So they look at diverse, as what Ishita also mentioned. There is an artist, there's a medicine, there's a pharmaceutical guy, there are doctors and there are engineers. So it's not just going to be a typical, Indian B school where a bunch of, engineering grads again going for a, MBA just for the sake of job. It's going to be more of a diverse learning experience, which would predominantly build your. So that's one of the important aspect. I think hello. Okay. Can you guys? Yeah. So I think the overall profile building helps in that way, and the journey, the SOP is really important. I see a lot of students struggle because of that, because they're not inborn writers. Potentially, one of the tips that you guys can give from your SOP, I can definitely go on and on, but I believe you guys can add more value here in writing your essays, and what was the thing that you reflected in your essay.
I think.
Yeah, go on.
I think I'm really bad at writing, or at least I was a year ago when I had to make the applications. So I would open the document and stare at the blank page for hours and not get anything to write about. But I think the key is to spend a lot of time on it. So you make drafts of it, you write whatever comes to your mind, and you slowly and gradually improve on it. The application form of the universities itself is really comprehensive. So there are a list of, like for me, there were a list of 10 to 11 questions, specific questions that you had to answer. So that itself gives a lot of information. When you're writing your SOP, make sure that you answer some key questions, like make sure to mention why you want to do the course. what value you'll add to them, and not only what you'll get from them. Uh, and uh, and yeah, try to make it comprehensive, like in the form of a story, that okay, I was doing this and this was the point in my life when I decided that I really want to do this. And through this course, I feel that this are the reasons that'll help me, and this are the reasons how I can add value to the course. Or if there's some specific field, or a professor that you like from college and you've seen their work, you can mention that. Or if there's a specific committee you'd like to be a part of in the college, you can mention that. So yeah, those are some things that I feel make a good SOP.
Interesting. So this almost brings to the almost very end of the session. But before we, take up for the question answers, there's one big announcement as we promised to all the audience, and this is certainly a very, very big announcement from our side. So we have collaborated with a lot of colleges all across the world, and we've pulled in together of close to $1 million in terms of sponsorships, scholarships, and study abroad support. This comes from international students, scholarship mode. So I have shared the link with you guys as promised. Go there and look towards it. It's called Dream Big Scholarship. It's predominantly for approximately 200 to 50 students for US, Canada, Australia, Europe, and UK. So you can apply for many of the universities. As we are backed by over 2,000 close universities all across the world, we can definitely help you get some scholarship or maybe full scholarship, depends on your profile. Nothing promised yet. So yeah, that's one thing. But yes, coming back to one of the main understanding of internships or the kind of projects, the kind of companies that someone wants to join before getting into the college, certain thoughts I want to understand from both of you. Like, what was your bachelor's internship experiences? Okay, what kind of projects that you did which you feel have added value in your career till date? Okay, and did you also have what's your take on brand versus profile when you're going for a internship or a job?
I would say so. In bachelor's, I had no idea what kind of internship to take, so there was only one internship that I did, and that was probably keeping placements in view. The company that I was targeting to get into, I did a internship in that company. But if you're really sure that you're going for a master's abroad, what you really need to think, as I said before, it's all going to be a story, put into a story. So so the kind of internships that you should be looking at, probably for analytics courses, you should look at something related to analytics, so that would be beneficial. I would say brand wouldn't matter so much in the early stage, like before your masters. Of course, it's a good thing to have, but the work that you do really matters. So uh, if it's a good brand, but you're doing low quality work, it doesn't quite work out, in my opinion. So the quality of work that you do should be prioritized. And yeah, so you need to keep in mind that it has to be a coherent story. It has to be put together into a story, and you should justify why you're taking that particular. You can justify. So that's what you need to think of.
Interesting. So Ishita, what's your thought on this? Brand versus
Um,
profile, very highly debated topic, honestly.
yeah. Actually, I have a doubt. Uh, what do you exactly mean by brand? The brand of the university that we're going to, or the brand of the
No,
or the
the
company?
company right now we are talking about.
Okay, for the internships that we have already done.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel, yeah, if you're in a really great company, like maybe you've done an internship in Amazon or Google, then obviously the brand matters a lot. Because if you're in a company like that, it's pretty obvious that you've done some good work as well. But if not, then all the other companies are just the same, because people won't know their names when you write it in an application. going abroad, but they know the work. So I agree with Arpit on that. If you can explain what work you've done and how that's relevant to the course you're applying for, that's what matters a lot.
Interesting. So I
Like the
think
brand would matter when it's a great company because that would show that you have uh, the merit to get into a great company. So you're probably like a really great student. So that's what the brand would show. But otherwise, work makes up for it. If you can,
interesting.
and another very important thing that they teach us about is to write everything in a format, in a specific format where you say tell the facts, you tell what you have done, and you also always mention the result of it. So whenever you're answering any question in an application or when you're telling about the great things that you've done, always remember to mention how they've impacted. Like what was the result of the great things that you did during work or during projects or during academics or extracurricular. Like show the impact that you've made.
Interesting. I think impact is a key word here that most of the top B schools or colleges would look towards in your profile. And they certainly look towards the clarity of you for your applications and for your career. If you're losing clarity and you just want, because I've seen a lot of people just write, I need to earn more money, and probably I'm doing my master's for that. That may not be a right answer in that. There's a different way to put at it, but yes, that may not be the right choice. So yeah, I think we come to almost like the close to the session. Now we are open for, I think most of the questions have been answered on the charts. So, and we have covered most of the questions in a way. So if you have any questions, we are open for next 1 to 2 minutes, and then we'll wrap up the session.
Feel free to ask your questions. Open your mic and just ask.
Yeah, you can even do that. Right now, we are not having enough. What type of club should I focus on as an undergrad student?
I'd say focus on the club that you like. I mean,
Yeah.
because if you like sports and you're in a sports club and you've won some competition, that's a lot better than being in suppose a technical club where you haven't essentially done anything. Or if you really like the technical stuff and you're in that club and you've gone for some competition and won something in that competition, then that's better than being maybe in a cultural club. So it's okay. Just choose a club that you really like, and you can always make it sound great in your application because then you'd be talking about something you really like to do and probably have gotten some results from it. The results matter.
Yeah. Plus, you'll enjoy being in that club.
I believe so because Arpit was into sports and
Yeah,
Arpit would
I was,
tell.
I was a part of the sports business club at ISAD as well. And that was an MBA club, and we were the first MSc students to get into that club actually. So I had to convince the president to allow us.
Interesting. So one of the question is potentially to Ishita here is, will a non-technical background hinder my applications for analytics program?
No,
Um,
No?
what?
answer.
Okay, let me iterate this question, and probably because both of you have analytics in your curriculum. So will a non-technical background hinder my application for analytical program?
Oh, no, it won't. So you can, if you can justify why you're choosing the analytics program and show some sort of contribution in it. So um, you can make up for the lack of technical background by doing courses. Do some basic courses in the basic analytics languages, say R and Python. Do a course in that. You can do an internship in that. So I think these two are the
Actually, schools do provide pre. I don't know if it's the case for LBS, but ISADE
focus.
provides a pre-course before starting the actual course, where non-technical people are trained on Python and stuff. So it's really
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
So
there
it
are.
won't affect your application. Like I said, there are people from law backgrounds, from medical backgrounds, from business backgrounds, but
Yep.
you need to tell them why you want to do it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big reasons here is also into the kind of program that you're applying. If you're applying for a very advanced program where you definitely need a thorough background, then definitely you need to have a right amount of justification, because then your batch would be much more senior to you. If you're applying for an early stage program like MFA, which I think requires 0 to 2 years of experience, we still have a greater chance to actually get into that kind of university. So yes, courses, Udemy, there are tons of great online resources which can help you get a fair amount of background on those locations. So yes, one very interesting question, and potentially you both guys should answer this. Can you explain me about the accommodation problem that a student face in foreign countries, or you may list down some of the problems?
Uh,
Go on.
Honestly, it wasn't really a problem. It was quite a smooth process for me, but I have seen people face problems. So, for my university, the university does not have any, they don't provide accommodation. So, you have essentially two options that you have. Either you can go for for like a hostel kind of a thing over here, or you can rent a flat. So if you're renting a flat, you'll once you get an admit and all the students get in touch with each other, there'll be groups formed, and you can find flatmates for yourself. You can search for agents on the site, and you can look for flats that way. And if you're going for a hostel kind of an arrangement, then again, you have university portals where they list possible accommodation options, and you can look at them. So yeah, there aren't really a lot of problems. You do find a flat because
Yeah.
everyone's looking for something.
Yeah, worst case, you can just rent out an Airbnb for a month or so, and
Exactly.
then go there and find something. I mean, that's what I did. That's not a problem at all. You can find something always.
Absolutely. Talking about the accommodation, we have some great Indian startups also, like University Living Abroad, ACO, which also helps you pre-book certain accommodations. You can have a look at them also, at least something that you can connect on an Indian terms and have a early set of properties booked for a while. But yes, abroad accommodations are far better. You just have to be careful. At least for Melbourne, you just have to be careful what kind of areas, what kind of locations are you picking it. Don't just be really budget concerned, because sometimes you may end up taking a wrong property. It happened with me because I stayed very far away just to save some bucks, but it was every day it's a pain. If you're going for the first time, probably you should stay inside the college so that you have more collaboration, more networking opportunities, and you stay in that ecosystem. Okay. But yes, subletting, renting, leasing, very fairly done outside also.
Yeah. And another way would again be networking. So just reach out to some people from your
Yeah.
from that university, and they'll provide you with some great advice about the area so that you don't face similar problems. Yeah.
Okay, so there's one guy who is doing data science course from IIT Madras as a bachelor's, I think. And does he feel that is IIT tag good for getting a top B school? Uh, Probably let me please allow me to pick this question. I come
Mhm.
from that background. IIT definitely gives you a little bit of awareness advantage, because most of the top universities know IIT because of the collaboration thing. But yes, it's just not that you're a 6 pointer in IIT and you end up getting an LBS or any top university. That would not be possible. So you have to work on that platform which you might are having as of now, studying at a top Indian college on that note. But yes, there's one question which has come up: is extracurricular as important as academics if you're going for management and certain allied courses, or is it something that we can still might be miss it?
It's a mix actually, and it's tough to say what is more important. I mean, probably in India, academics would matter a lot, but abroad it really doesn't matter as much. So I would say both are equally important.
Or being really good at one. So, for an example, the person that I live with, she's in my batch as well, and we have completely contrasting profiles. So I'm really great at academics, but I didn't have a lot of extracurricular under my belt. Whereas she was an average student in academics, but had like a lot of extracurricular activities that she was a part of. So, like I said before, I'd like to reiterate this point that what there should be one highlight in your application at least. So,
Yes.
so one thing that you're really great at, and the other things can be good. That's okay.
Absolutely. I think one of the very interesting insights that I've repeatedly heard by most of the management graduates is you need to have peaks in your profile. It can't be an average flat profile. Try to get those peaks. How would you attain those peaks? Probably if you not have understood now, you do what you're doing, but be good at that. Be really, really good at that. So enjoy what you're doing or do what you enjoy. That's how I would like to put it, but be really good at that. Don't just copy what others are doing for the sake of doing it, because at the end you become a very average or mediocre profile, which I believe would give you into a struggle, in a position of struggle for your further career. Okay. So it's okay to stand out. A lot of people shy away because they see socials may not add value, and then later on understand, okay, this adds value to the application. Let's try and do this. So don't do that for the sake of doing it. As I said, just enjoy what you're doing, and probably you would, end up doing something really amazing. With that said, we would end this session. But before ending the session, potentially I would like to share all the LinkedIn profile. If you guys have your LinkedIn profile up, please share. As I said, networking, you guys have guided them, so they would want to network with you. There's one thing that I could share probably as a sneak peek to our new platform for all the mentors and students. This has never been done before. Trust me, this is the first time anyone would see this platform. Let me share the platform with you guys.
Just a small thing to add while he does that. I would suggest, don't look at B schools as your goal, or don't look at the program as your goal. Your goal should be something out of that, and the B school should really be a stepping stone before you achieve that. If you keep that in mind, I think everything will fall into place. I mean, this is my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Absolutely. I think that's something a lot of people need to understand. It's not just about the top B schools or, MIT, Harvard, Caltech. Definitely those guys have a great rankings. A lot of people aspire for that, but trust me, it's more about your entire journey. And once you go along, you would get to learn that it was just a year or two after that. Okay, so please, I think share your link. Okay, both of you have shared your LinkedIn profile. So let me view this.